Manchester United were, until recently, among the world's most successful sports franchises. But with troubles on the pitch, in its boardroom, and with its share price, can the legendary English football team recover anytime soon? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, Manchester United's American owners want to sell it off, but they're having a hard time finding someone to buy it at their desired price. Meanwhile, the team's performance on the pitch has been suffering. Just how long will the club's fans continue to tolerate this downturn?
Ask almost anyone to name an English football team and chances are they're thinking of this: Manchester United's legendary Field of Dreams, Old Trafford. For years, the team was at the pinnacle of the game, winning trophy after trophy at home and abroad. But they haven't won any silverware since 2017, and crosstown rivals Manchester City now dominate the league. Man U's fans are not happy about the situation. Most of their anger is directed not at the players, but Manchester United's wealthy owners. The US-based Glazer family, led by brothers Joel and Avram Glazer, bought the club in 2005 for $790 million and listed it in New York in 2012. Since the takeover, Man U has reportedly spent more than $1.2 billion on interest and loan payments, plus share dividends, the majority of which have gone to the Glazers. But the club has also spent about $1.4 billion on transfers under the American owners. The Glazers announced in November that they were considering selling the club. The price they're reportedly asking for is $12 billion. Two serious bidders emerged: the royal family of Qatar, which hosted the 2022 World Cup, and British businessman Jim Ratcliffe, the chairman of chemicals giant Ineos. Unfortunately for the Glazers, Manchester United's market value currently stands at around $3 billion, about a quarter of what the owners want. So, are the Glazers going to walk away with a big win, or score an embarrassing own goal?
Well, let's meet our guests in Manchester. We have Andy Mitten, editor of the United We Stand fanzine. Also in Manchester is the freelance sports journalist Mia Lazaro. And joining us from Naples in Italy is football journalist and presenter on La Liga TV, Semra Hunter. Welcome to the show. Andy, I'll come to you first of all. This has been going on now almost 10 months. What is going on with the sale of Manchester United?
United fans wish they knew what was going on. It's incredibly frustrating for fans because they expected the process to last a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. There was relief when the announcement was made last November because fans felt the Glazers were on their way out after a long time since that very controversial takeover in 2005. And there's huge frustration. There's protests at almost every Manchester United game. The Glazers are not popular with the supporters. And even within the club, people who can't say it publicly, they want change as well. And they're not considered to be successful owners for Manchester United. The club's in debt, the owners take dividends, and people just want change to come as quick as possible. And it's like a cloud hanging over the whole football club. Of course, that doesn't mean that the team play badly just because of the owners, but it just sets the mood. And at the moment, the mood is not a good one because the team has started the season poorly.
Mia, is there a feeling among supporters of Manchester United that the Glazers are dragging this out, trying to drive up the price in the process?
I think we can all agree, fans and those who are just spectators, that they are definitely taking their time with trying to sell the club. I think that it's gone beyond the border now. It's ruining the club from top to bottom. You can see this now with the lack of investments within the club. You can see this now with the amount of rejections for bids. It's just time now that something needs to happen, because I just feel like this is just going to ruin the reputation of the club, and this is horrible because of the legacy that Man United hold.
Semra, talk us through the whole kind of timing of all of this. Why do you think the Glazers want to sell now? Why was that decision made? Was it the fan protests? Do you think a lot of anger outside the stadium building up and they just felt, let's just cash in and get out?
It's a good question. Why they decide to do it now, honestly, I think it's anyone's guess. They've always kind of kept their cards close to their chest. And I think that furor, that anger has always been there from day one. And they don't seem to be owners that are too phased or too bothered or influenced by the extreme amount of anger and hostility that are shown their way by a lot of the fan base of Manchester United. It's always been there. And so I don't know if that would necessarily be what kind of pushed them over the edge now. Perhaps it's because of the valuation of the club. It's higher than perhaps it ever was previously since 2005. They felt that this was a good moment to actually cash in, as you rightly say. They thought they would try and get their hands on a hefty bid, something around the ballpark of 8 to 10 billion is what's been reported. But of course, nothing has come close to that. The two highest bids have been around 5 billion, about half of that. And so they don't seem to be in any kind of hurry to actually make a decision. And as Andy was saying, hardly information has ever come out. And no one really knows kind of what they're thinking or what they're planning on actually doing. You have to kind of read between the lines based on their behavior. So whether it has to do with the fact that they want to pay off these debts or they want to cash in, get as much money as they possibly can in the return on their investment, because they feel that now is a good time to do so for whatever reason, then so be it. But the fact that they are kind of dragging their feet and leaving the club in a state of limbo in a lot of different ways, and it does have a top-down, trickle-down effect all the way through the club. It certainly is doing a lot of damage, I think, and potentially could continue to bring about more damage if things aren't taken about in a more swift action.
Andy, what kind of owners have the Glazers been? You're at every game, you speak to players, you know the coaching staff. Manchester United is your life. What kind of owners have they been?
Poor owners. They're trying to bring money in because the club needs capital, because they can't compete with rivals anymore, because they've not invested in the stadium. Old Trafford was expanded and modernised almost every other year between 1992 and 2005. That's the year the Glazers came in. I wouldn't say it's been left to rot, but it has stood still. If you look at the main rivals of United, in terms of clubs with global support, Real Madrid, Barcelona, work is being underway and undertaken to expand, to improve their stadiums. Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, Tottenham, they've all spent hundreds of millions on the stadiums. Old Trafford, which was once the best stadium, is now fraying around the edges. It's still a very good stadium. As owners, they've not communicated with the supporters. They've taken huge dividends. They've lobbed huge amounts of interest. United have spent over £1 billion in interest since they took over. That money could have gone into players. It could have gone into the stadium. They've never been popular owners at all. And they'll be judged by what happens on the pitch as well. And Manchester United have gone from being the preeminent force in English football to a team that finish third, fourth and fifth. They've not won the league title since 2013. We've seen a succession of world-class managers and players come to Old Trafford, often on huge amounts of money. They still pay top wages and leave Old Trafford with their reputations damaged. And expectations are high, not unreasonably so, because of the wage bill, because of the players, because of the club's reputation. There's been moments of success, cup wins, but there's not been a single title challenge now since Ferguson left. United have won 2 knockout games in the Champions League in the last decade. It's just not good enough. And this season has started poorly. But so have 6 of the last 10 seasons. They've started poorly and fans are frustrated. There's still good players there. There's still good managers there. Erik ten Hag's a very good manager. I did a big interview with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer last week. He spoke about his frustrations. Frustration is a word I hear a lot when I talk about Manchester United.
Mia, there are 2 people trying to buy Manchester United, and I think they're probably getting frustrated as well. You've got Jim Ratcliffe, who's a petrochemical billionaire from the Greater Manchester area, and Sheikh Jassim of Qatar. I mean, these are people who are very used to getting their own way, and this process is dragging on. Do you think there's a risk that one or the other, or possibly even both, might just walk away?
Well, I think now that the time has gone, I mean, Jim Ratcliffe, we can only just hope that he buys the club. But as for the Qataris, I just don't think anything is going to be bought anymore. The amount of mess that this made to the club right now, just to follow on with the investment in terms of infrastructure, it's going to be difficult for any of them if they buy it to fix it. The Glazers have spent £98 million on infrastructure from 2010 to 2021, and that's the least amount if we compare it to City, who have spent over 400 million, and Liverpool, who have spent over 200 million. When you are looking at investing at a club this big and you want to buy it and you look at what's actually going on, I think at this rate they're just not going to want to participate anymore. I am not a United fan, but if I was, I would have wanted and still do want Jim Ratcliffe to take over and to buy the club. But I just think at this moment of time, there is nothing to come from it in the near future.
Semra, Jim Ratcliffe is a fascinating man. I've interviewed him before. I've spent time in his company. And one quote from previous interviews has always jumped out. He said to someone once, "You don't want to be the dumb money in the room." At what point does the sale price of Manchester United not make sense for Jim Ratcliffe?
Well, for the time being, it seems as though the price that Manchester United supposedly want, or I should say the Glazers supposedly want, is probably too much. And that's why there has been a bit of a standoff between these bidders and the Glazer family. Because now I think in the last day or two, there were reports that were coming out saying that apparently he's interested in maybe a minority stake, which would be something like 25%. But then the Glazer family would still be largely in control of the club, which is a lose-lose situation, I think, for a lot of different people. And I think the fans would not be happy with that kind of outcome at all. I think fans, by and large, would prefer that somebody comes in and takes 100% ownership of the club, whether it be Jim Ratcliffe or whether it be the Qatari Sheikh. And so I don't know at what point he's willing to say, you know what, okay, this is too much of an asking price. Or if he's already said, listen, 5 billion is my ceiling. I'm not willing to go any higher than that. And we have to remember that there have been moments in which the value of the club have also dropped. I think it was when they announced they were taking the club off the market, they actually dropped shares of almost $500 million in one day. And it was the lowest it's ever dropped in the history, I think, of the club. And so obviously it will fluctuate, but it was valued at that point in time at 3.7. So is that going to be enough for him? You know, 5 million, 1.5 million now, I think, is what's the latest being reported in terms of that 25%. Is he happy with that? Will he want more? I think we don't really know quite yet. And whether the Glazers are happy to take that kind of ownership model or not. So I would say his range is probably within that, maybe 1.52 to 5 billion. But I'm not so sure he's going to go beyond that, because clearly there has been no kind of movement going on over the last 9-10 months.
Well, the Glazer family will say that they've backed every single United manager with cold, hard cash in the transfer market. We're going to take a look at some of where that money has been spent and what those players are now worth. Harry Maguire, bought for £80 million, market value possibly now 17 million. Jadon Sancho, bought for £73 million, current market value approximately 38.7 million. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, bought for £55 million, currently now valued 21.5. Anthony, the Brazilian international, bought for 85 million, current market value just north of 50 million. Andy, do you feel the Glazers' cash has been spent wisely?
Well, it's not their cash, it's Manchester United's cash. The Glazers take money out of the club, they don't put money into the club. I feel that the main point here is that the recruitment has been poor for Manchester United. This is a club with the first and second highest wage bill in English football. Only really Manchester City is comparable. If you look at a club like Liverpool, who are third or fourth highest in English football, been much more successful. They've won the league. They've had a very successful manager in Jurgen Klopp, and a broadly similar ownership structure as well. American owners. The club is in debt, but Liverpool have expanded and improved Anfield continually. They've rebuilt the main stand. They're rebuilding the Anfield Road stand at the moment. And for most Liverpool fans, they are perceived to be successful owners. Fans don't tend to love the owners at any club. The Glazers have definitely not been loved. Recruitment has been consistently poor. Now, if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said that Erik ten Hag has got a better handle on recruitment than most managers. But you're asking me now when the team have lost 4 of the 7 opening league games, and the mood is low among supporters. Although I am at the under-19s against Galatasaray, and they have just gone 1-0 up against Galatasaray, so there are a few people smiling around me. Recruitment and investment has been poor from Manchester United. There's been successful signings such as Bruno Fernandes, but the club tend to overpay, and they struggle to move players on because they earn that much money. Players are reluctant to leave. And if you look at how Manchester City bring players through and sell players on who people have barely heard of for 10, 15, 20 million, their recruitment is much more successful than Manchester United. Of course, it helps when you're the best team. Manchester United have gone from a position of strength, being able to attract the best players in the world, to a position of relative weakness where they have to overpay to bring the talents in. The worry is that you get world-class names coming to Old Trafford, people like Angel Di Maria, for example, and they fail. And I could name 7, 8, 9, 10 players for whom that's happened to. The same happens with managers as well. Jose Mourinho came with a big reputation, Louis van Gaal, and they leave as damaged goods. Their reputations are not in tatters, but they have to pick them back up again. So it's a club where the pressure, because they are so big, because they've got a global following, the pressure and the scrutiny is more intense than pretty much anywhere in the English language speaking world. But that comes with being a Manchester United player, and you're remunerated well because of that.
And Andy, can I ask as well, how much did all of this play into Cristiano Ronaldo leaving the club the second time?
I think I know exactly what's gone on, and he was made available. He wanted to leave Italy. He was pushing his sale more than anybody else. I asked Man United in April 21, are you interested in Ronaldo? I was told by 3 different sources, categorically no. 4 months later, he signs for Manchester United. So that shows how a mishmash the recruitment can be. When Ronaldo rejoined, almost every fan, including myself, including the manager, they were delighted. He had a good first season. But behind the scenes, I heard very worrying reports. And he ultimately cost Ole Gunnar Solskjaer his job, because Solskjaer was doing a decent job, and Cristiano, who's been one of the best players in the world, probably the most technically gifted player I've ever seen play for Manchester United in his first period, he was declining as well. It happens to all footballers, and he took it very badly. And I think Erik ten Hag managed the Ronaldo situation pretty well. He let him talk himself out of a contract, talk himself out of a move from Manchester United. He felt he had a lot of suitors. When push came to shove, there weren't as many as he thought. He's moved to Saudi Arabia, where he's doing well once again. But don't tell me that league is as strong as the Premier League.
Mia, do you feel all of this leaves Erik ten Hag in a very, very difficult position?
I would say so, yes. I think myself and other people who are watching this, if Erik ten Hag does not take control of Manchester United, then the club is finished. You've seen this with Alex Ferguson's disciple, Moyes, hasn't been able to help the club. You've seen this with, again, Louis van Gaal hasn't helped. You've seen this with Jose Mourinho, didn't work. Also, you've got to look at Erik ten Hag, the way that his possession and the way that he's working within the club, his philosophy is confusing. He doesn't know whether if he should use United's old philosophy of attacking, or whether he's a possession-based manager that completely ruins the squad and what's going on. Then you also have to look at the crazy contracts and how, again, the recruitment is just not working well. Sancho is on approximately 350,000 a week, and the fact that he's only 21 years old, the kind of money that's been invested does not work. You see this with Maguire, who did not want to leave Man United. West Ham wanted him, but of course Maguire did not want to leave because of the immense money that he's getting through his contract. Erik ten Hag is in a very difficult situation right now, and I think if he isn't able to get to some sort of decent level with the club, then I think Manchester United are currently, will end up just declining.
Semra, how much does stuff happening off the pitch affect highly paid professionals who go on to it? Because a lot of people would feel that whoever owns the football club, you should be giving 100%. Your attitude should be bang on for the money you're getting. And it doesn't seem to be happening at United.
I think people have to remember that footballers at the end of the day are humans. And I've worked with a lot of former pros and current pros, and they all say the same thing. that these kinds of issues that do happen off the pitch inevitably seep in and affect you in one way or another, either directly or indirectly. So it's entirely possible that you would see the level of performances dropping or being affected based on everything that's going on around them, especially with Ten Hag. I imagine that the pressure he must be under is so immense. People want him to be more than just a manager. They want him to also be someone who's going to help resolve some of the bigger issues that are going on behind the scenes, when really it should be those that are running the show fixing everything from the top down. Let's not forget that there's a lot of other sideshow issues going on whenever it comes to several players that have been under scrutiny and under investigation as it relates to allegations of sexual violence and aggression and rape. Then you have other issues going on as well in terms of the investments not being done properly, but the fact that they can't be made because there's no idea yet as to whether the sale is going to go through or not. So there's a bit of a situation where that's kind of on hold right now. Then you have the whole issue with the players not necessarily coming together, gelling together in a way that will be work and beneficial to the club as well going forward in terms of bringing those results and actually competing for trophies and so on once again. So he's trying to deal with a lot, and he's constantly under a lot of pressure now, of course, with the Jadon Sancho issue, with whether he's had a fallout with a player or not. Is he going to stay and go? You almost get a sense that in press conferences, he's rarely asked about the football itself. He's almost asked about everything else. And that's a pretty heavy burden to bear on your own. And so it's a very difficult thing, I think, to navigate. And obviously that then can rub off on the players themselves if they see what's happening with the manager. And of course, they see everything else that's going on around them. So I think it is a difficult ask in some ways to just say to the players, OK, ignore it and carry on and keep going. Because as I say, they do get affected by these things. And so hopefully there will be some kind of resolution soon whereby everyone can then turn a page and everyone can have a bit of a fresh start once more, wipe the slate clean with new ownership perhaps, and then have the proper investments on all levels, whether it's with the playing staff, whether it's with Old Trafford, whether it's in the players themselves in the first team, whether it's in the coaching staff.
Andy, given a choice, Ratcliffe or the Sheikh, who would you go with?
Good question. It's a hard question. Fans are divided on what they want next. If you look online, there'll be more support for the Qatari bid. If you speak to United fans at matches, there would be more support for the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid. But fans are completely divided on this, and it's a very emotive subject as well. The one thing that they are united on is they want to see the end of the Glazers. There are concerns with both of those prospective bids. You hear talk about potential sports washing, greenwashing from the Ineos group as well. I don't think there's a panacea here to Manchester United's problem. What needs to be sorted is a resolution to the Glazers. It's dragging on. It's not helping anybody. There is a cloud hanging over the club. It's stalling future investment, mainly in the stadium. And you're seeing that the mood is prevailing in filtering down into results on the pitch. And then, as Semra said, you've got all the off-the-field stuff. OK, the team have been very unlucky with injuries so far this season. I'm a sports journalist and I'm being asked to go on television more months than not to talk about things like domestic abuse, some of the allegations which some of the players have faced. That doesn't point to a club which is in a happy state. And yet last season, Erik Ten Hag's first season was a good one. I'm not saying it was a great season, but the team finished third. The football was good. Old Trafford became a fortress again. A cup was won. People expected an improvement this season. That has not happened. So we're seeing this rinse and repeat cycle where managers come in, make an improvement, and then there's a regression. And we've been seeing that so far this season, although it's still early.
Mia, is the nightmare scenario for United fans that the Glazers just stay?
I think right now is the nightmare situation. If you look at what's going on, again, once said, with the investment, with the way that contracts are being created, with the medical team and how the players are being impacted. Right now, United fans are in absolute hell, especially with what's going on and how they're barely succeeding. It depends all on what happens afterwards. But again, for the foreseeable future, I do not see anything positive. I don't think United fans see anything positive, and they're currently in the worst state. It's completely ruining the legacy of the club, and everyone around senior positions such as Ten Hag and all the other assistant managers have a lot to deal with. And the United fans are just that. absolute struggle right now.
Semra, my final question goes to you. It's Manchester United. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world. Can they get back to where, by rights, their fans believe they should be?
I would like to think that they can. I mean, everything like in life, as it is in football, it's cyclical. So hopefully they're just kind of in a stage in the cycle where they're on a bit of a downturn, and that means that around the corner things will start to look up for them once again. Eventually the Glazers will go one way or another, whether it's going to be now, whether it's going to be down the road, somebody else will eventually come in. So you just hope that whoever is going to be the caretaker, the new owner, that they look after the club properly, the way that it deserves to be treated, the way it deserves to be looked after, and that it will help bring them forward into the future to continue to compete with the biggest clubs in the world.
Semra, Mia, Andy, the final whistle is blown. Thank you for joining us on Roundtable. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.